Life is never always a comedy. At times, it is tragedy. Life is experienced as a constant, never-ending shift between successes and failures, sometimes occurring within moments of one another. To be human is to fail. We may experience hardship because of our own faults or because of the faults of others, but the reality is they exist. We fail in the small things like staying on a diet or running a 5K or keeping a New Year's resolution. We fall in larger things, overcoming an addiction, finding employment, or holding on to an important relationship. Sometimes even our failures negatively impact us for the rest of our lives, keeping a marriage together, persuading a child to make better choices, or overcoming a lifetime of debt. But in each setback, whether small or large, we find opportunity for growth. Some of the most influential people in my life have cemented their legacy through their failures. This should come as no surprise. After all, some of the most inspirational stories ever written center on personal triumph over weakness or loss. As one screenwriter once told me, if the hero in your story does not experience tragedy, the audience will never relate to him or her. Failure is a necessary part of life. We would be wise to allow it to change us and shape us. But how do we redeem failure for good? Here are 9 steps. Number 1, admit that you experience it. Despite the universal nature of failure, our world goes to great lengths to hide it. People always have and always will. Our default position too often is to downplay our weaknesses, but those who find growth in failure begin by simply admitting its existence in their lives. Number 2, recognize that failure is common. Because we know all experience it, we find comfort knowing that we're not alone in it. Number 3, look for personal responsibility. Our initial tendency as humans is often to blame others or uncontrollable external factors, because to admit defeat is to admit defeat. But rarely are the failures in our lives entirely the responsibility of someone else. And until we take personal responsibility in some capacity, we can never move on to the next step. Number 4, work on your weaknesses. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living," and this holds true in both success and failure. When failure occurs, which it always will, the wisest of us journey inward to determine the cause and the steps we can take to learn from that experience, and in time, we learn to champion humility. Number 5, let go of the factors outside your control. One of the most hope-filled moments of life is when you find the courage to let go of what you cannot change. Number 6, grow through the pain. We live in a society passionately committed to avoiding pain, but there's benefit to be found in discomfort. While I would never encourage anybody to intentionally seek pain through failure, it will arise. And when it does, it will be okay. In fact, it will teach us things we could never learn elsewhere. Patience and perseverance, for example. Number 7, forgive. If your pain is partly a result of someone else's failures, you'll find freedom in forgiveness. Number 8, turn to others. Nobody successfully navigates life alone. When the hope inside us begins to fade, we look for it in others. We turn to family. If family is not available, we turn to friends. If friends are not available, we look for intentional communities around us to find support. So turn to others for the hope and encouragement that you need during these very difficult times. And number 9, finally, when appropriate, share your story. It may not happen right away. Some failures take longer to process than others, but eventually you'll find opportunity to share your story. And when you do, share it with honesty and humility. Through sharing your story, you'll discover opportunity to provide hope, strength, and encouragement to others. You'll find influence for good, and you'll begin to make sense of your failings. Failure is never the end. It is instead a necessary part of the journey. It's a part of yours, and it's a part of mine. May we keep hope alive and find redemption through it.